Your phone rings on a Tuesday. Nothing about the day warned you. You're standing in a parking lot, keys in hand, thinking about dinner. The voice on the other end says a name you haven't heard in years and a number you don't understand yet. $2 million? Not a lottery, not luck. A grandfather you barely knew, gone, and a will with your name in it. You don't cry, you don't celebrate. You just stand there holding the phone like it might explain itself further if you wait long enough. It doesn't. The parking lot looks the same, the keys are still in your hand, nothing has changed, and everything has. The first rule: money doesn't arrive as a feeling. It arrives as a phone call, and the feeling comes later, uninvited. The first week, you don't touch it. You can't. It sits in an account you're too afraid to open more than once a day. You keep living exactly as before, buying the same groceries, driving the same car with the check engine light still on. Not out of discipline, out of disbelief. Some part of you is still waiting for someone to call back and say it was a mistake. You tell one person, then you regret telling one person. Their eyes changed the second the number left your mouth, not envy exactly, recalculation. You watch them recalculate who you are in real time. The second rule: the money doesn't change you first. It changes how people look at you, and you feel that shift before you feel anything else. The first month, you finally open the account and stare at the number like it belongs to someone else. You make a spreadsheet. You close the spreadsheet. You open it again at 1 a.m. You read about index funds until the words blur, then close the tab and reheat leftovers, because somehow spending $12 on lunch still feels dangerous. The habits of $35,000 don't disappear just because the number changed. They live in your hands longer than they live in your bank account. A cousin texts you for the first time in 3 years, just checking in, she says. You know what she's really checking. You don't answer for 2 days, then answer like nothing happened. The third rule: the money moves faster through your relationships than it moves through your life. Month 3. You buy one thing, not a car, not a house, something small enough to test the water. New shoes paid for without checking the total. You expect it to feel enormous. It feels almost nothing. That absence of feeling scares you more than spending did. You still flinch at the register out of habit, even when the card can't decline. Your mother mentions the inheritance at dinner, not directly, just close enough that you know she's been thinking about it. You change the subject, she lets you, but the air in the room stays different for the rest of the night. The fourth rule: the money doesn't ask permission to become the subject of every room you walk into. Month 6. The guilt shows up uninvited. You didn't earn this. You didn't build it. You catch yourself apologizing for things you haven't even done yet, softening plans, downplaying purchases, shrinking a life that technically has room to expand. You finally hire someone who understands taxes better than you do, sitting across from them, listening to words like trust and allocation. You realize you're not managing a windfall anymore. You're managing a life that outgrew the one you had instructions for. The fifth rule: inherited money doesn't come with inherited confidence. You have to build that separately, and it's slower than the transfer ever was. Year 1. The apartment changes, not dramatically, just enough. A second bedroom becomes an office. You sleep without calculating tomorrow's gas money for the first time in your adult life. The quiet that arrives with security isn't peaceful the way you imagined. It's loud in a different way. What do you actually want? Who are you chasing money to become? Now the silence hands it back to you, unanswered. Old friends start treating invitations differently, careful, half-joking about who's paying. You start paying more than your share just to make the discomfort disappear faster. The sixth rule: money doesn't just test strangers. It tests the people who knew you first, and some of them fail quietly. Year 3. You've stopped mentioning the inheritance altogether. Not shame, protection. Family reaches out with a warmth that arrives suspiciously close to a request. You start answering the phone slower. You meet people who don't know. For the first time in years, someone talks to you without doing the math first. The seventh rule: the money buys freedom from struggle and simultaneously buys distance from the people who only knew you inside it. Year 5. You barely remember the version of yourself standing in that parking lot. There's a version of that old life you still miss. The version where a small purchase meant something because it cost you something. You catch yourself explaining a decision to your grandfather in your head, wondering what he'd think of who you became. The eighth rule, $2 million doesn't finish a story. It starts one you have to write without the person who funded the first page. Somewhere right now, a phone is ringing in a parking lot. Someone is about to hear a number that changes nothing and everything in the same breath. It's about who stays, who recalculates, and who they become once the silence after the phone call finally ends. Year 7. The number has grown quietly in the background, compounding while you weren't watching closely. You check it less now, not out of fear like the early days, but because it stopped being the thing that defines your mornings. A younger cousin asks you for advice, not money this time, advice. You give the advice carefully, aware that whatever you say now carries weight it wouldn't have carried 7 years ago. The ninth rule, money eventually stops being something you manage and becomes something that manages the way people see your judgment. Year 10. You sit down one evening and try to write out what actually changed, not the number, the person holding it. The money didn't build a new person, it just turned up the volume on the one who already existed. You think about the parking lot again, not with longing, with something closer to gratitude mixed with grief. The 10th rule, a decade in, the money is no longer the story, you are. It just handed you the pen 10 years earlier than you would have picked it up yourself. Year 12. There's a night, ordinary in every way, when you sit on the porch of a house you own outright and watch the sky do nothing in particular. Someone from your old neighborhood reaches out, not for money, just to say they saw a photo online and thought of you. You hang up and realize the loneliness that came with the money was never permanent. It was a phase, not a sentence. The 11th rule, eventually the number stops being the loudest thing in the room, and what's left standing when it quiets down is just you, older, steadier, finally worth the noise it took to get here.